There we go. I thought I was looking a little bit dark. Hopefully that helps. Hi, Abigail. Just wait for a few more people to join, and then we can get started. Wow, got a few of you joining in. Got my cup of tea to keep me warm on this chilly evening. Just give it another minute or two, because I know there's a few people that messaged me saying they were going to join, so I want to make sure they don't miss the start. Fab. A few more join now, so we will get started. I hope you all had lovely Christmases and lovely New Year's as well. I think we can still say Happy New Year as we're 10 days into January. So with New Year often becomes, we have lots of new goals. Sometimes they are personal goals, sometimes they are fitness goals. So I'm here to talk to you about the fitness related goals that you might have. Often this might be, I want to run more, I want to run further, I want to run faster, I want to be able to lift more in the gym, be a bit stronger, or it might just be about generally being more active. Normally you sit at a desk all day, but now you want to get 10,000 steps in, or you want to make sure you do something every day where your body is moving. And these are great goals to have. But what can sometimes happen with these goals is we get injured. And obviously that's not what you want to happen. And I have lots of my patients actually say to me, oh, it's January, are you really busy? Are you quite quiet? Like, how is it? And we typically find in our industry, January, we're busy because people have made New Year's resolutions to get their injury sorted. So they've made a resolution to sort their shoulder injury out or their knee injury or something. And we see them then. We see the sort of January gym goers, as it were, the people that have picked up exercise that maybe haven't done as much prior to the new year. We tend to see them in February or March. It takes them a little while to get injured, and that's when we tend to see them. So we're trying to prevent that. And so the common injuries I would say that we kind of see in February, March, we get a lot of tendinopathies and a lot of reactive tendons. So if you're not sure what that is, you can go back and have a little listen to another live that I did on tendon injuries. If you want to know, want me to tag you in that, then just let me know and just comment below. I'm just going to put my phone on silent so we don't hear the buzzing. There we go. Then I will tag you in it. So a reactive tendon is basically where a tendon has been overloaded acutely, it gets a little bit angry, it gives you a bit of pain. In this stage, the collagen in your tendon, which makes up your tendon, isn't super happy, but also isn't that damaged, and it's really reversible. As long as people kind of settle down quickly from the exercise that they're doing, we can reverse that. By the time we're getting a bit further down the kind of tendon chain, we've gone from having a reactive tendon to having a tendon in disrepair and then a degenerative tendon. That's when it gets a little bit harder to manage and things take a little bit longer. So first we'll be talking a little bit about that, and then we'll go on to muscle strains and tears. So typically we will see these in people that have maybe tried to lift something a little bit too heavy, a bit too fast, or have tried to run much faster than they have done before. Their muscles become overloaded and then we get tears. Typically tears we will see at the musculotendinous junctions. This is where we have a tendon that attaches to a bone. We've got the tendon here and the tendon's got to change kind of into muscle. So we're getting these cross fibers as it goes from tendons to muscles, and that is the weakest part of any muscle. And that's often where we'll see a tear. Doesn't mean that we won't see a tear in the mid-belly of the muscle, often we will, but typically the weakest spot is that muscular tendinous junction. Stress fractures and overload injuries, so sort of tendinopathies and reactive tendons come into that kind of overload injury category, but also we get lots of stress fractures. So this, or what we'd call a stress response in the bone. So if someone comes to me and said, oh, I've been running more recently, I'm getting pain on the outside of my foot, the first thing I'm thinking is this a fifth metatarsal stress reaction? Initially, that the bone will react and give you that pain doesn't mean that you've got a fracture yet. It's kind of warning you, honey, you need to slow down, you're going to get fractured otherwise. And typically that will be from sort of overloading it over time. You won't just get a stress fracture from one incident. It will be a build up. So maybe you hadn't done any running at all. It gets to January and you think, oh, I'm going to go for a 5k now, and that felt really good. So then the next day, like, I'm going to go for a 10k, and you just keep building it and building it. But actually, you know, you've done quite a lot quite quickly, and that's what's then caused the injury. We also see lots of other injuries at this time of year as well, like skiing injuries, particularly as a lot of people I think at the moment doing some drunk skiing. That definitely leads to injuries, and just sort of normal falls. So we see a lot of falls around this time of year. There's leaves on the floor, it's quite slippy. We have ice. I slipped over myself in the gym car park the other day, and luckily I was fine because I'm young and my reactions are quite quick. I managed to put my hands down onto this bollard thing quite quickly. But had I fallen backwards and landed straight on my bum and hit my head, you know, that would have been another matter. So slips and trips can happen to anyone at any age. So when we're sort of looking at preventing injuries, we're going to first talk about sort of that tendinopathy and reactive tendon and overload injuries again. So building up slowly is the best way to prevent this. So the ideal way that I would say you want to prevent these type of injuries is doing something like, say you've not ran before, or you've not run recently. So you've been December and you've had the whole month off, maybe you were not really running much before then either, or you've not been consistently running. I would say just go for a 1k, just do a 1k run. How does that feel? And I would say do it at a pace where if someone was running next to you, you could talk to them and you'd still be able to have enough air in your lungs to breathe. So I'd say going at that kind of pace if you're someone that's not done running before. If you have done running previously, maybe you just had a couple of weeks off over Christmas, just go at 50% of the distance you were previously doing instead. But for your kind of more novices, you want to go a little bit slower. After that 1k run, you can then monitor yourself that day and think, am I hurting? Am I sore? Is there anywhere I'm a little bit concerned about? And I would take the next day off of running. The reason for that is the next day you can then wake up and think, okay, is my body feeling okay now? And if it is, then great, you know, give that whole day for you to rest, recuperate, recover, and the next day you can go again. But if you wake up and you think, oh, my Achilles is a bit stiff today, or I hadn't noticed that before, this is the first day I've noticed that, that's when you know that maybe that Achilles tendon's a little bit reactive because you did a bit too much the day before. So that's a really easy way to monitor it. If you're getting no pain, no symptoms, then the next day you go for another run, go slightly further. And the same thing, just kind of keep repeating that until you're getting confident enough that you want to go running on back-to-back days because you built it up over the last few weeks. So that's a sort of really easy way to prevent it. And that's the same thing with tendon injuries if we're having them from the gym. So for example, common tendon injury we'll see from the gym is extensor and flexor tendonitis, which is of our elbow, which is here, or tennis elbow, golfer's elbow, you might have heard it referred to as that. And the reason we see that in the gym is because it's lots of gripping. You might be gripping your dumbbells, you might be gripping your barbell, whatever it is, you're often holding something. So if you've not been to the gym in a long time, and then you go and do deadlifts where you're gripping the bar, you might do some farmer's carries, again, you're gripping, bent over rows, all of these things where you're doing the same action, that's when you might get something of the forearm, for example, from the gym. And it's the same thing, it's building up nice and slowly, taking breaks in between to make sure that you're monitoring your body. Because the biggest mistake that people make with tendon injuries is they notice the soreness. They know it's there, but they think, oh, it'll probably get better. It's just a bit of a niggle, we'll just leave it. And they leave the tendon injury and then it gets worse, and then we've got this horrible sort of degenerative tendon that gets worse and worse. So that is something that you can do is just be building up over time. The other thing as well is sort of having adequate food and fuel. So something that a lot of people do in January is think, I'm going to cut loads of calories out because, I've been eating so much over Christmas and that kind of thing. I do understand that, but if you've got a fitness and exercise goal that you're trying to hit, being in a calorie deficit probably isn't going to get you there. And actually you're just increasing your likelihood of getting injured. So you might have overdone it at Christmas, but actually if you're exercising more now, that's going to put you in a calorie deficit potentially anyway, or maintenance calories. And that's probably going to be a better way to go than thinking, okay, I'm reducing my food loads and increasing my exercise. That's a perfect storm to get injured. And that goes for any and all of the injuries we're going to speak about today. But just sort of mentioning it in with the tendon injuries. Obviously, rest and recovery are super important as well. Like I was saying before, taking those days in between running if you've not been running recently at all, and sort of listening to your body. So you might have been absolutely fine for the first week and done 1K on one day, had the day off, and then you might have gone and done 2K, had a day off, and the third day done a bit further. And it might not be to the end of the week that you think, okay, actually, wow, I'm really tired now, but I still want to go for that run. My body's feeling really achy. That's when you have to listen to your body and think, actually, my body is telling me that it's hurting. It's telling me that it's sore. Going for another run isn't going to benefit me. I'm probably just going to end up even more sore and potentially injured afterwards. So sometimes you've got to be a little bit less stubborn with yourself and actually think a little bit more sensibly. So moving on to the next kind of category of injuries that we typically see, sort of our muscle strains and tears that we often see from mainly the gym, but sometimes from people that are trying to run faster than they have done before and they strain a muscle as well, or just from people that are just trying to get more active and just overdo it slightly in a class or anything like that. So what we want to do, again, is being progressive, but we want to be progressive in a slightly different way to what we were when we were running. So like I said, with running, if you've not run in a while, you'll want to take a break in between days. With the gym, you don't necessarily have to do that, because on a Monday, you might go and you might have mainly focused on your upper body. So there's no reason to take a rest day the next day. You could just do legs instead. Or you could do like a push-pull and a legs day, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then a rest day at the end of that. But because you can change the body parts that you're using, unlike running, because you can't suddenly run on your hands, you're able to kind of spread it out and train a little bit more. So I would say, with sort of regards to the progression, if you've been to the gym before, but maybe you've taken a rest over Christmas and you're wanting to come back and hit it hard, the first week, just go at 60 to 70% of your kind of the weights that you were lifting previously, just to ease back into it. Otherwise, you're either going to end up with a tendon injury or you're going to end up with a strain or a tear. If you've not been lifting previously, this is something that's quite new to you, then obviously starting on lighter weights is going to be good just to get a feel for them, so you can see, okay, does this feel easy, does this feel hard? And sort of a good way to progress is each week adding about 10% if you feel able to. So if one week you've been able to squat 50 kilos and you're like, oh, this feels quite easy, it's not too bad, add 10% onto that, and the next week you're lifting 55 kilos, and that's kind of quite a safe way to increase it without the risk of injury. So I'd say that use that as a general rule of thumb, is about a 10% increase. And you think as well, if you've been going to the gym for a while and you've been lifting weights and you're lifting 50 kilos one week and the next week you're like, oh, I'm just going to go up to 100 kilos. Do you think it's common sense not to do that? But I can tell you, after watching people in the gym after multiple lockdowns, it is not common sense to not try and lift more than you can. So yeah, just bear that in mind. I would also say doing a periodized program across the year is really important, depending on your goals, of course. But you want to be switching it up between sort of hypertrophy and strength. So Hypertrophy Nat has actually done a live on this. Again, if you want me to link you to it, just comment and I'll make sure I do it afterwards. But hypertrophy is basically where we're trying to increase the size of our muscles. So we're wanting our muscles to look bigger and to appear bigger. And that has great benefits, because if we can lift more weight in our, so normally we'd stick to about a 10 to 12, 8 to 12 kind of rep range for hypertrophy. If we can lift a heavier weight for that many reps, then we're probably going to be able to lift an even heavier weight for fewer reps for our strength stuff. But we want to constantly be switching between that and strength. Or when we're lifting, we might do a couple of strength-based exercises where we're doing 4 to 6 repetitions of around sort of 3 to 5 sets, and keeping quite long rest breaks in between, followed by some hypertrophy. but you want to make sure that across the year you're undulating. So you're doing some hypertrophy, some strength, some hypertrophy, some strength, adding in some power as well. If you are someone that requires some power for a sport that you're doing. But that's a good way to change up your program, because then that means that you're not constantly focusing on the heaviest piece of equipment in the gym that I can lift all the time. You are changing it up, and that's also going to be really great for improving your muscles' resilience and improving their strength and that kind of thing as well. But it's also going to really help you not get injured. Rest days from the gym are important too. I know I said at the start that you don't need to be resting sort of every other day like you do with running, but you still need to have a break. If you are overdoing it in the gym, you're more likely to get injured. You're actually not going to get the results that you want. You think, oh, I'm going to hit it hard every day and I'm going to make myself really sore and that kind of thing. You're actually going to probably slow your progress down because you're not getting the recovery that you need. So when you hit that body part again, it's too fatigued and tired to give you what you're wanting from it. So actually sometimes more is less when it comes to doing some gym activity. Like myself, I train 5 times a week in the gym. I do netball and walking and running outside of that as well. But Monday to Friday, I do 3 leg days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then 2 upper body days, Tuesday, Thursday. I am very rarely sore. It's very rare that you'll hear me say that I have delayed onset muscle soreness, because my training program is very sort of regimented so that you don't get that soreness, because that becomes quite counterproductive if you're getting sore all the time, because then you're less likely to be able to lift things in a couple of days' time as well as you did before if you've got that soreness. So making sure that you're getting enough rest is very important. Monitoring your volume as well is the next way that we can prevent muscle strains and tears in the gym. So sort of some of the ways that you can do that is looking at how much weight you've lifted on certain exercises across the week and working out a number from it. So say on Monday I did 10 repetitions of 50 kilogram squats, and I did that for 5 sets, for example. I can do 50 times 10 gives me 500, and times that by 5 because I did it for 5 sets, and that gives you 2,500 kilos that you kind of lifted. So you can kind of work it out like that, if that makes sense, across the week. And then it might be that maybe I've done squats on a few occasions, and I can work out across the week what my volume was. So you can do that as well, and again you can then add 10% onto that the week before, but also making sure that we're getting changes in that, because the last thing you want to happen is that you're constantly trying to lift more, and then you break down and get injured. And this is when, I've spoken about this in lots of different lives, it's important to be taking deload weeks as well. So that's sort of a active recovery week where you're still going to the gym but you're lifting lighter than you were previously, maybe looking at sort of 50 to 65% percentage wise of what you would normally do. And the reason for that is, you're still moving, you're still keeping active, but you're preventing yourself from getting injured because you're giving your body the kind of rest and recuperation that it needs. With regards to how often you should have these weeks, it does vary person to person. So the way I do it is, if maybe I'm not sleeping very well for whatever reason, because I'm stressed or I'm really busy, I'm not getting the hours in bed that I need. If I'm generally feeling stressed, I don't have loads of time and that kind of thing, I will put in deload weeks more frequently, because my body is calling for it, I'm needing it, and I'm just going to get injured otherwise, and that's going to annoy me more if I get injured and not being able to lift heavy every week. So sometimes I'll put them in every 3-4 weeks. If everything's going a bit better and I'm not as stressed, I'm able to sleep, my diet's been good and that kind of thing, and I'm feeling fit and healthy, I'll leave it a bit longer, 4 to 6 weeks. So you have kind of got to monitor it on what your body is feeling, and sometimes you'll be able to go a long time, sometimes you need a shorter time, but it's an important aspect that should be accounted for in your training. And again, back to the nutrition side of things, like we mentioned, when it comes to sort of overload injuries, again, if you're trying to go into a calorie deficit but also going to the gym and you've not been before, or you're going back to the gym after a long time off, your body is not going to thank you if you're not getting the nutrients that you need. You need to have adequate protein, and you need to have adequate carbs if you're going to the gym regularly. Otherwise, what happens is when we exercise, we get exercise-induced muscle damage. So that's where we get kind of little tears basically in the muscle fibers, and that's when you feel the soreness. And you're like, oh, that's a bit painful. By eating protein, the protein gets uptaken into our muscles through carbs, just to really make this very simple. Carbs allow it to get into our muscles, and then that can be there for growth and repair. So yeah, that's why we need to make sure we're eating enough protein and carbohydrates. If we're not going to get that recovery. We're just going to be really sore. We're just going to be more likely to get injured. So that's sort of a little rundown of all the things we can do to help prevent like our main injuries that we get around sort of February, March time, after we've kind of trying to hit our fitness goals in January 2022 or in a year. But I want to go through a couple of extra things you can do to help as well. So one of them is sleep. If we're not getting enough sleep, again, we're not going to recover. If we're not going to recover, we're probably going to get injured. So making sure that you're getting 7-8 hours sleep a night or more if you can. My body literally doesn't let me. Now, if I get into bed with 8 hours sleep, I will wake up an hour early. It only wants me to get 7 hours sleep. But if you're a better sleeper than me, then that's great. And the more you can get of it, the better. Human growth hormone is released at night. This hormone helps with your recovery and your growth, hence the name. We get more of that when we're younger, so that's why babies sleep so much, because they're growing rapidly and they need to have that hormone release. As we get older, that hormone release does drop, so we don't get quite as much of it when we sleep, but it's still important. It is still something that we do get. Making sure that you've got kind of good gear, whether that is your running trainers or your rackets or whatever it is that whatever sport you're planning on playing. If you've got a pair of running shoes that you've dug out, I've not run in 5 years, and you find these shoes, you're like, yeah, these will be fine. One, you're not running them in 5 years, so you don't go out and do a massive long run because you're going to get blisters, your feet aren't going to know what's hit them, your knees, ankles, hips, everything. To make sure that you've got a really good pair of shoes, a good pair of lifting trainers as well if you're going into the gym, but particularly with running shoes, making sure you're wearing them in. So that's why, again, it's important to scale back how far you're running to make sure that you're able to cope with the amount that you're doing and the footwear, because a change in footwear again can lead to a tendon or an overuse injury as well. Making sure that we've got good technique and good form, whether that is running or in the gym. If you're not sure what good technique or form is, then you can always contact us On Your Game. We will happily look through things and say to you, or maybe you can try this, try that, and give you tips and tricks. We've obviously got lots of stuff on our Instagram page as well. That helps give you some tips on what to do too. So stretching and mobility. The research for stretching is really mixed. Lucia's done a live on this. Again, if you want a link to it, then just comment below and I'll send it to you. But yeah, sort of our research on stretching isn't great, but the general consensus is it probably does help a little bit, at least to help with soreness, even if it doesn't help with preventing injury. But it's something that you can definitely be looked at. Mobility is really important. If your range is restricted somewhere, then you're more likely to have an injury. So, for example, if my thoracic mobility, like my mid-back mobility is quite limited, I'm all hunched over, I'm not going to be able to lift my arm up. So making sure that we've got good mobility by following mobility programs, which again is something that we can help you with, or you can find some free resources on our Instagram as well. That's something that's really important. And sort of deload weeks and rest days we've kind of already covered too, but important for anyone that's trying to exercise a lot. And the final thing is seeking help early, because the amount of people that come to us after their first or second session and say, I just wish I'd come sooner, is unreal. Because so many times people come and I'm like, if only I could have seen you like a month ago when this first started, and now we'd be so much further on, and the issue wouldn't even be there. People leave their little niggles thinking this is going to get better, it'll be fine, it's not going to get worse, it's just a little niggle, and then it ends up being really bad. So I would say, if in doubt, just message us, and we can always get you booked in for a little MOT checkup and say, do you know, this is nothing to worry about, or yeah, I'd actually be cautious, we can do X, Y, and Z. So that's sort of my extra tips. Now we're going to do a little Q&A, so if you've got any questions regarding your fitness goals for this year, any extras that I can kind of give you on how to prevent an injury, I can let you know any tips and tricks that I've got to help you reach them sooner, I will. So fire away and ask me questions if you have any, and if not, you can always drop us a message as well. So I'll give you a second to type some of them if you've got any. Cool. I don't think we've got any questions coming in, but like I said, if anyone thinks of any after, just drop me a message, or you don't feel happy commenting them on here, that's absolutely fine. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you've got any physio need, you're injured at all, any pain, anything you're worried about, or concerned about, you want us to have a little look over, then obviously just drop us a message anytime and we can happily book you in. But thank you very much for joining and Happy New Year. First of many lives of 2022 that On Your Game will be doing. Thanks. Bye.